And we are live, and this is kind of an impromptu thing. Call it some bonus content or what have you. And Jim, you're saying you'd rather be on Odyssey. I am on Odyssey right now. I just didn't put the link out. You are welcome to go over there and jump on and watch over on Odyssey. But I will only be reacting or interacting, I guess I would say today, with people that are on YouTube or Facebook. Because this is impromptu, it was just a little opportunity to talk about some genetics and some breeding and some stuff that I've talked about a lot on the air with the podcast. And I thought this would be a unique opportunity to do a little bit of a teaching thing. And the thing is, what I'm going to show you today is actually, we have some volunteers over here. They're right down here. They're cheap and they're not happy about it. But they're going to be with us in just a moment that are going to help explain how this all works. But this is not just something you can do with chickens. I've talked about it with plants a lot. And generally, you're looking at 7 to 10 generations of this process and an awful lot of parentage, okay, more than I have for these chickens, to get to what you would call a stabilized new breed, or in plants, we would call it a variety or something like that. This is one of these lost things that every farmer and whatnot knew how to do 100 years ago, to create new varieties of animals, to create new varieties of plants. And it's just simply by selecting for what you're looking for. Now, what I have to explain before I show you what I have to show you today is I'm not continuing this project. This was a what if project. Like, what would it look like? How fast would we be able to get there? And I'm probably not going to really continue a lot of work with bantam chickens going forward. Quite a few of my bantams have been picked off recently by hawks. And there's one hawk that won't be around anymore. I didn't do anything to him. Hawks are protected. I didn't do anything to them. But I'm just going to say that sometimes when hawks attack animals, and sometimes you have other animals that are around to protect them, maybe a certain dog who's been hunting bad birds and chasing them away for 9 years finally got one. Yeah. But, they're going to come back around and you're going to have problems like that. So I think I'm going to go to bigger bodied birds if I continue to work with chickens. This was just a little bit of fun and games to see what would happen. But here's what we did. I'm gonna share some stuff on screen right now. This is the famous Billy Roy. Billy Roy is a splash blue Old English game bantam rooster, and he actually used to have a really pretty comb right there on his head, nice scallop like you're about to see from one of his sons. And he was kind of stubborn and obstinate during the Great Freeze, and he wouldn't go to bed. And fortunately, I found him so he didn't freeze to death on the porch, and put him in the chicken coop where I had some supplemental heat and at least shelter from the wind. But he did get frostbite and lose all the scallop off his head. But I want you to look at Billy Roy here. Billy Roy is white, and he's got this kind of blue-gray fleck throughout him. That's splash blue, and his particular breed is an Old English game bantam. Next, we have some of Billy Roy's sons and daughters, and we have the mother of these birds. And I know they're her eggs because, well, the only other bantam female that was around when this was going on was a dark black Bam Cochran, and she had her own thing going on at the same time. So we were able to isolate this girl's eggs. She actually decided to incubate her own eggs, and she hatched out this group of young birds here. This guy right here in the front, you can see that he is actually, well, I don't know if you can see, I know he is actually a young cockerel. That means he's a boy. And you can see he's got a very prominent comb, even at a very young age. And at a much younger age, it was already there. They came out of the egg almost already, where you could almost tell just by the combs alone in this particular cross. Again, this girl right here and this boy right here, right? And then this right back here, this is actually a pullet, a female. And you can see she doesn't have any of this flecking of brown coming out in her wings. And these guys were actually a sex link from birth. Even when they were tiny little chicks that had just popped out of the egg, a half a day old, you could tell there was a definite difference. And they did, in fact, go true to that. And they were all cockerels and pullets, boys and girls, respectively. This is what they turned into. And I just thought they were a beautiful bird. And I came up with a name for this breed. I called them a blue phantom, mainly for the girls. If you look at the girls, they have this really cool chestnut flecking around their necks. They have absolutely black wattles and combs. They're much less pronounced than the male, obviously. And then this chestnut marking just kind of fades into this really soft blue color. And they're all very, very similar, almost identical to each other. And this is what the males look like. I still have one male and one female out of these groups. The males developed this really beautiful chestnut color. They have the blue color from the phantom into their tails. And there's just a gorgeous bird. And when I saw what happened, I didn't do this on purpose. Like, when I saw this happen, I was like, I want to work with this and see what's possible. So what I did is I took, and you're breeding brothers and sisters. Chickens don't really care. If I was going to take this project far more long term, I would need to go and get some more splash blue roosters and some more buff Orpington hens and bring more genetic diversity to this. But what I'm about to show you with the girls will be in the babies from what's called the F2 generation will be enough for you to understand what you need to do if you want to do this. And again, you can do this with dogs. You can do this with chickens. You can do this with ducks. You can do this with peas or beans or corn or anything. This is how we got everything that we have today. There was actually not that much diversity in all the things that we eat and we farm with, 5,000, 10,000 years ago. And then man started to figure out how this genetic stuff worked out. Now, this is not a big genetics lesson today, but that again, we'll go back there real quick. That is the F1 generation. We took mommy and we took daddy and we did a simple cross. Imagine that instead of a Old English game bantam, this is a German Shepherd, and that this was a collie, and then you have Shepherd collies, right? Yeah, or you call them Shelties, I think. Anyway, you got a Shepherd collie mixed, right? That's what this is. Now, if you do that, and that's all that you do, and you start breeding your Shepherd collies and your Shepherd collies, they're going to begin reversion back to the parent stock. But not all of them will. Now, if you want to actually create a new breed, a Labradoodle, right? Like Labrador and Poodle mixed together, and you want to do that and you want to stabilize the genetics so that instead of every time I want a new Labradoodle, I got to go get a Labrador and a Poodle and make that cross, then what you need to do is you need to start taking Labradoodles and Labradoodles from different genetic lines, which I don't have. Again, this is not something that's going to be a long-term project. This was just an educational thing. And you start breeding them together. And as you do, you'll get puppies that will begin to drift back to both sides of the parentage. You will also get puppies that look like Labradoodles. You'll take only those puppies, and you need to do, again, multiple parentages and grandparentages, and then take the ones that breed true and breed them together. You'll continue to see drift back toward the parent lines. But the next generation, you'll get more that remain true to this new type. And they may not be exactly the same as that first F1 cross, but you start selecting toward this new breed what you're looking for. And then you'll take those in your F3 and you'll keep doing this. And you keep bringing in new genetics on the outside and keep breeding true so that we get enough diversity, but enough toward this new line. And eventually we can create a new breed of dog, a new breed of chicken, a new variety of beans. And again, it usually takes 5 to 7 generations. This is what happens in the F3 generation. Now, there's actually some more variety than the 4 I'm going to show you, but these are the 4 main varieties that I ended up with. So, remember the pictures I showed you, and remember how that first F1 generation were all beautiful blue phantoms, the name I just made up. This is the son or daughter, and I'm going to guess daughter if the prominence of the comb remains an indicator, and I'm not sure that it does yet, but this is a daughter of 2 blue phantoms, male and female. This is actually the daughter of this guy right here and one of these girls. I'm not sure which girl, but that's what this is. Okay? Who does she look like? Doesn't she look? Let's look at her wing here a little bit. See the blue coming in? right? We've got the kind of this dirty white, blue mock. Now, she's in that dinosaur stage where they go from cute to ugly, and then they go back to kind of cool looking again. She's in there. But doesn't she look like old man here, like Billy Roy, right? So this particular bird began to drift back to the fraternal line. So she's fine. She is what she is. We don't wish her any ill will or anything like that. But if we were going to continue this project, she doesn't get to contribute to the next generation. She's drifted. So she has to go and do other things, or if she was a maybe big full-grown bird, maybe she's Kokavin, right? She's not really Kokavin because that would be a rooster, but she would have, now she's going to have a good life. She's going to lay us lots of eggs and she's going to get to hang out. But if we're breeding, this is not what we're looking for. Now, we find another. Now, again, these were all hatched from the same group. Okay. Here we have, but light's really hitting her hard. She's drifting straight back to mom's genes, right? See, she's going to probably look very much like a buff Orpington. This looks a lot like this girl right here did when she was a baby. And she's a little less so than some others. She's got a little bit more white in her. But, and I'm going to say her, nothing. Again, if the comb continues to be an early indicator, as has been the case with this cross, this is probably actually going to be a rooster. So we've got a female drifting to the fraternal side and a male drifting to the maternal side. And again, this little guy here, he's not happy about what's going on. Don't worry, you'll be back with your friend soon. But he would not be a candidate for breeding forward. We would either call him or let him do other things, or even let him go make mongrel chickens. It's fine. But for our breeding purposes, we would want to isolate him out. Now, we've actually gotten two types that are starting to look like the original. Now, again, these are all from the same line. Look at here. This, looking at that really less pronounced comb, is starting to seem a lot like a female that's going to look a lot like her mom, even though she's F2. Now, what I got to tell you, for every one of these, there's like 10 of those out of this group. I think 17 or 18 we hatched. 18 we hatched. We hatched 18 of them, and we've gotten 2 that look like this and 1 that looks like the next one I'm going to show you, and that's it out of all of them. That's how it works. Now, this would be somebody that may not be exactly like mom and dad when he or she grows up. But this is what we're looking for, this blue, this slate blue color, right? And if we look on the wings, she's exhibiting absolutely no chestnut or brown yet. Another thing that makes me think that she's a girl, if this holds true, you don't know until you do the work. Less pronounced comb, feeling the protospurs, no real sharpness to them at all, very dull. Probably a girl, probably going to look a lot like mom when she grows up. Will she have that beautiful chestnut collar? Don't know until she grows up, but as of right now, this would be somebody who gets to be part of the project going forward. Next up. I'm almost 100%. This is a rooster, young cockerel. Very prominent comb, lots of mottling, lots of the blue and dark on the wings. However, doesn't really look like it's going to come out quite like the roosters of the first generation. Won't know until we get there. But if this was the best we had for a male and all we had were other females like that, this would be somebody that we would use going forward. Again, you can get a look at, they're not very cooperative, are they? It's all right, buddy. It's all right. You can see the blue and the brown in the wings. And I think he's actually going to look, based on what I remember, his dad looking like, he's going to look a lot more like his dad than you might think right now. And this bird and that blue girl would be great to breed together, except I wouldn't do it. Let me put this guy back. You can go back with all your other friends very soon, guys. Here's why. We now have grandchildren and not even common, but the exact same lineage. They have the same parents, and they have the same, at least, grandparents. So we're starting to get where you're going to have problems with your genetics due to inbreeding. And so if I plan to do this long term, I would bring in other roosters, and I would bring in other hens. And I would definitely, and I would have to see what happened in the first generation cross. I would definitely go and get some Splash Blue Old English Game Bantam hens and some Buff Orpington roosters and try to cross in the other direction. Would I end up with a similar offspring or something very, very different? If it ended up very, very different, then I would cull that or maybe make that another project. But if you guys have any questions about this while I'm here and while I'm doing this, go ahead and drop them in the comments. I will see them on YouTube and Facebook both. If you put them in all caps, I'll know they're for me. And this is actually not that hard. And this would be the same thing. Let's say that you went out and you crossed a poblano pepper and a jalapeno pepper. And you knew that was the cross because you went and looked up on YouTube, and there's videos that show you how to do it, how to selectively breed peppers. And you manually pollinated, and you went from jalapeno female jalapeno pollen to female poblano flowers. And you knew you had that cross, and you put some foil around it so that nothing else, and then you harvested those peppers only, and you took those seeds. When you plant them, you are going to get a first generation cross. Almost everything you plant is going to be the same. Okay. It's going to be whatever that F1 hybrid is. And it'll probably be something cool. Like, people are afraid of hybridization. You shouldn't be. Again, it's how we got everything. There's no jalapenos in nature. There's no Bonnie green bell peppers in nature. There's no black cherry tomatoes in nature. There's no, Joe Blow snap pole beans in nature. There's no Buff Orpington chickens in nature. There's no Indian runner ducks in nature all by themselves. These are all hybrids that humans made. There's, honest to God, and everything we have that's now considered a pure breed started out as a hybrid. There's no wild dog that looks like a German Shepherd. There's no wild dog that looks like a pit bull. We did this intentionally over generations of breeding and rebreeding and proving out genetics and then stabilizing these new traits. So we shouldn't be afraid of it. But again, we're back to our peppers. Jalapeno, poblano, cross. Cool new pepper variety. Not some Franken pepper or something like that, some BS. Hybridization actually happens in nature as well. But then it's going to selectively breed for survival, not for the traits we particularly want as humans, right? So then we would get that pepper. Now, we plant it, we get these peppers. The seeds we get, oh, well, they'll be great peppers, but the offspring are going to suck. You don't know that. You don't know what they're going to be. What you're going to do, though, is you're going to plant a whole bunch of those seeds, and you're going to select the ones from that F2 generation that are most like the original cross that got you into the project. You're going to plant those, and it's going to take about 7 generations. And all of a sudden, you're going to have a brand new pepper. And it could be a multi-cross. It could be a quad cross. We could do here with our chickens. It might be interesting to go out and get something like a blue wide net on another side. And maybe we don't even cross the wide net. Maybe we do a tri-hybrid into this new line. You can do this with anything. And Garrison says, is love real, or is that how humanity copes with breeding? We don't do this with people, do we? I'm sure there's some kind of twisted scientists that might. This is not about love. The animals breed. We don't make them breed. I guess with peppers, like things like that. And the only reason we actually intentionally cross plants is because they don't act on their own and bees do whatever they like, right? So this is not like we're forcing these animals into this situation. Chickens naturally breed with other chickens. They don't care. They don't have any racial tendencies, right? They don't see that way. It's just, there's a rooster, I got my hens, and I'm going to take care of my hens, right? Ducks the same way. You got a drake, he's going to take care of his ducks. That's the way that works. So I don't really get that question, but I don't think I have a lot of more questions. I do hope that this, again, makes sense. So, again, we started out here with this guy, Splash Blue, and this gal. We call her Chestnut just because everybody needs a name. And they gave us these little babies, and they gave us these beautiful F1s. And here's a question I'm not really sure how to answer. Tuger says, did the Old English affect the laying frequency? So I guess what you mean is when we crossed Billy Roy with Butterscotch and we got those Blue Phantoms, did they lay more or less than typical? I'm going to say they laid pretty typical. Not enough for me to notice one way or other. They're very consistent. They pretty much give you an egg a day. But I would say that about the Buff Orpington. And I have never owned a female old game bantam. So I don't know if it's much different than that. But they're very consistent layers. They're also incredibly fast. And they're also, the roosters are incredibly defensive. But that's common with bantams. One of the reason I lost one of the roosters and some of the other hens is when the hawks were coming after them, the rooster actually attacked the hawk to defend his girls. Like it went full throat at this Cooper's hawk, which of course ripped his head off and killed him. So that happened. And but yeah, here's somebody saying I have 3 chickens silky crossed with Montla Dusels. I don't know that breed. My kids' show chickens. They are awesome, but bigger than both the parents. See, that's another thing you get. So you get what's called hybrid vigor. When you do a first cross, you get hybrid vigor, meaning you get faster growth and often larger growth. And that's definitely the case. Going back to here, these guys here, you don't see it as much with the girls because they're thinner, but these roosters are way bigger than their daddy. Now, how much of that hybrid vigor will carry through in a process like this? The answer is usually it stops at the F2. And even though you can breed for the trait, the size tends to come down unless you then select again. So in the beginning, we might have to be, beggars can't be choosers. So we breed whatever we get the trait we're most looking for, in this case, color and structure, right? So we breed for that. And as we begin to stabilize that, we actually can then say, I'm going to look at the growth rate, and I'm going to select once I begin to stabilize the phenotype, which is what you see, not the genotype, which is what's underneath. You need to run a Punnett square for that and actually know the traits you're tracking. Once you begin to stabilize the phenotype, now you can say, okay, I'm going to breed and you got to breed a lot to do this, right? You got to make a lot of babies. And you can literally weigh your males and you can track their growth rate and you can breed for both the speed of the growth and let's say what is the weight at maturity. And if you breed your biggest hens to your biggest roosters, obviously you're going to get larger offspring. As the new breed stabilizes, if you do that early on, it may not be the case because you've not yet stabilized the phenotype. And again, phenotype is what we see, what we can judge with our eyes. Anyway, guys, I really appreciate you guys, tuning in today. I didn't think this would be a huge live stream as far as the number of people, and it wasn't. It's late in the day. It was just an idea that I got. But now that I have StreamYard, doing these videos live is just easier. No editing, no uploading, no nothing. It's on YouTube. It'll go over to Odyssey. It'll be on all the platforms, and it'll work forever. I appreciate you guys hanging out with me today. You guys have a great day. If you have any questions about this, I actually think this would make a fantastic podcast topic to talk about breeding and stuff like that. Shoot it into me, and maybe it'll be on a future episode of the podcast. Just put TSPC genetics in the subject line. And if I get enough interest in this, I'll put together a podcast on it and we'll go deeper into it.